Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, we're going to be talking a lot of NBA. There has been some incredible playoff games yesterday, breaking down the Lakers and the Knicks Game 2, both coming down to the wire, and the outlook for the rest of those series. We're also going to talk about the NBA player vote that came out yesterday on The Athletic, asking a whole bunch of NBA players what they think of certain questions like the MVP, the GOAT in the NBA history, and much, much more. We'll break all of that down. And in our fourth segment, we're going to do a little bit of NFL draft coverage, talking about the potential trade of a wide receiver from a powerhouse team to a team that could really use a wide receiver to give them a leg up in a tough division. So we'll talk about all of that, but before we get into it, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation at that link on the screen right now, gsmcpodcast.net. If you leave a message, that message will pop up on the bottom of the screen. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say. All you need to do is go to that link. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. You can control what we talk about here on the show. Appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. But like I was saying, we have a lot to cover, a lot of great playoffs. And we're going to start out west. Our first buzzer beater of the NBA playoffs happened, and it was a great one. The Lakers lose in heartbreaking fashion to the Denver Nuggets on Jamaal Murray's fadeaway jumper at the buzzer to put the Nuggets up 2-0. The Nuggets, I don't know if this is their game plan. I don't know if they just are taking the Lakers too lightly. But this is the second game in a row where they have come out sluggish and lethargic and slow, and it hasn't mattered. This was as close as you can possibly cut it if you are the Nuggets. You were down by 20-plus points. You make a huge comeback in the second half, and you get bailed out by the best player on the planet and one of the greatest tandems in the entire league. The way that Jamaal Murray and Jokic can work off each other is what makes that team so special. It's just a little concerning to me, especially against a good Lakers team. This team, although they are a 7 seed, they are still very good. You know, you have LeBron James, you have Anthony Davis, you have Austin Reeves, you have D'Angelo Russell, you have a pretty solid set of supporting cast with, you know, Rui Hachimura and all these guys. So it's not a bad lineup by any stretch of the imaginations. But when you are running into a team like Denver, the Lakers can't continue to go on these runs, and they've been, all credit to the Lakers. They've been starting off these games hot. They were up huge. They were up by double digits for almost the entire first half. They couldn't hold it, and it's tough to hold it against a team like Denver. But what happens when especially in the third quarter of these last two games for the Lakers, has been a whole bunch of nothing. You know, they've been building these huge leads and then giving them up, and then Denver just crawls its way back into the game slowly and surely because they aren't concerned. They don't get fazed by whatever the Lakers are doing, and the Lakers seemingly run out of that passion, that energy once they get up big. I don't know if it's coaching that needs to change, but they need to get some kind of juice going under them. I mean, you lose a heartbreaker 2 games in a row. You give a big comebacks twice in a row, and you lose on a buzzer beater, a tough buzzer beater after Jamaal Murray hits tough shot after tough shot after tough shot down the stretch, and Nikola Jokic just bullies Anthony Davis down low. I mean, Anthony Davis is nothing to sneeze at as a post defender. You put him down low against one of the best finishers in the entire world, one of the best finishers of all time in Nikola Jokic, and he makes it look easy. The way he can just footwork his way around a defender that's as big, strong, and physical as Anthony Davis is incredibly impressive. You get some of the... it's just so impressive to watch this Nuggets team work, although it is a little concerning because they are pushing their luck a little bit. I don't know if this is their plan to not tire themselves out because I feel like they feel superior to this Lakers team, and that's not really where you want to be in the playoffs because it's the playoffs and anything can happen. Especially, you don't want to count out a LeBron James led team. So if the Nuggets, especially going to LA, I think being at home certainly helped them down the stretch with their fans being into it, being able to add that extra juice and energy for them. But you go to LA, you're going to be playing in the Lakers arena with their fans. Comebacks are going to be harder. You don't want to be put in that position every single game where you're down 15, 20 points and you have to make this dramatic comeback in the second half. This is not a position that if you are the Nuggets, you want to continue to put yourselves in. But it is a position that you have continuously, at least through the first two games of this series, found yourselves in. And it's not really a good look. Now, am I really that worried about the Denver Nuggets at the end of the day taking home this series? No, I'm not, because as they've shown in these last 2 days, these last two games, they're just better team, and the Lakers unfortunately just don't have the ability to stop them. At least right now, at least the way that they are, they don't have the manpower down low to stop Nikola Jokic from getting to the basket whenever they want. They don't have the outside defense to be able to shut down a guy like Jamaal Murray on the pick and roll. They've just been killing them with that. They don't have the defensive switchability to deal with this to deal with this Nuggets team. They just don't have it all together as they should right now in the playoffs. And I'm not too worried. And maybe that's the part that's keeping the Lakers in this game because like I said, I am guilty of counting the Lakers out a little bit because of their matchup. I think the Lakers have had a real shot of beating a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder because you have a guy in Anthony Davis down low that can shut down a Chet Holmgren. You have LeBron James that can go toe to toe with just about anyone on that team. The defense would struggle against an athlete like Shea, but I think they could figure it out. When you go against a guy like Jokic, he's just overpowering, and what he can do with the ball in his hands, whether it be driving or whether it be passing or whether it be doing his floor general stuff, it's just it's just the Lakers don't have the team that are built for that. And it's not just a Laker problem. There are very few teams in this entire league that can compete with Jokic right now just because he's such a unique player. He's such a unicorn of a player. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on in the show when we talk about the NBA player poll, but the league respects him because of what he is, because of what a special talent he is, and what a special player he is, and how he can just change the entire game just by being there, just by taking up space. Even if he decides not to shoot, he is still the best player on the floor. And that's quite a talent to have every single time. Jokic is just really hard to stop, but it was a great game. The Lakers lose heartbreaking fashion. If they can't pull this game 2 out, I'm worried it's going to be a sweep. And again, I'm not trying to slander on the Lakers here, but I just think the Nuggets are a nightmare matchup for them. The Nuggets are a nightmare matchup for just about every team in the entire league, and I expect them to win the championship again because of just because of Jokic, really. He really is that valuable of an asset when he's there, when he decides to be aggressive. You saw what happened in the second half when he started being aggressive and driving to the lane and not being as passive. It completely flipped the entire way the game was going. It fueled this Nuggets comeback, and it started the Lakers' collapse. The Lakers need to be able to find they need to be able to find something, because it's hard to double team Jokic. He'll go find the open pass. He's bigger. He can see over you, and his passing ability is unrivaled, at least in the league today. And if you just go on him one-on-one, you see how he dices up a guy like Anthony Davis, who is one of the best post defenders in the entire league. So looking at the way that the Nuggets are built, looking at the way that the Lakers are built, it's going to be really, really tough for them to win some games. And I like to sit here and tell you that they win one. If the Nuggets continue to come out slow and push their luck like they have in the first two games of the series, I think that the Lakers absolutely can steal a game. But a series with the way that Nuggets have been able to crawl back and look kind of unfazed over everything, definitely not looking good for the Lakers. It's a 4 or 5 game series at this point, unless some kind of huge momentum shift we see in Game 3 as they get home starts to happen. I just don't see a way that the Lakers win this series, and it's quite unfortunate because, like I said, this is a really good Lakers team. The core of Anthony Davis and LeBron James is nothing to scoff at. It's very impressive how they were able to build a team around those two guys, especially with the financial situations they were in earlier. They were able to get really quality depth around those two guys. So it's good on the Lakers. It's tough running into Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets 2 years in a row. And there's unfortunately not a lot you can do about that. But anyway, in our next segment coming up, we are going to talk about the New York Knicks and their nail biter against Joel Embiid and the 76ers. So we will break down that game too, as well as some quotes from after the game and the fallout from that, and take a look at that series. Stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows are 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I appreciate everybody for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we just finished breaking down Jamaal Murray and the Nuggets' heroics as they hit the first buzzer beater of the NBA playoffs last night, taking down the Lakers to extend their lead in the series to 2-0. We're going to talk about a similar looking series in the Knicks 76ers in this segment, but before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to the link on screen right now. That's gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate everything that you do give. We appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. Once again, if you would like to control what we talk about on the show, all you need to do is go to that link, gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we are going to talk a little bit about the Knicks 76ers series. They just had their second game of the series, which was also a great game. We had our first last night was great NBA basketball. That's the playoffs that we've been waiting for. The weekend didn't really give us too many great games, but two tight games and two high octane series. Taking a look at the 76ers losing their second straight game to the New York Knicks, who finally got a great game out of Jalen Brunson. Joel Embiid still hasn't quite shown up the same way that at least I expected him to against a Julius Randle-less Knicks team. Knicks team that, without their big post presence, I thought he would dominate down low, get really whatever he wants, but Isaiah Hartenstein has been invaluable to the Knicks. Defensively, especially. There was a huge block he had down the stretch in this game to help secure this tight lead, this tight victory. But he's done a great job controlling the post. Like I was saying, when I was looking at this series at the beginning, I just did not see much of a chance for the Knicks to be able to slow down Joel Embiid in the post. And Hartenstein has done just an incredible job, really, down there. uh, at least slowing him down, which is a really, really, really tough path. It's not easy to shut down a guy who is as big and strong and powerful as Joel Embiid in the post when you don't have your own big, strong, powerful guy like Julius Randle, who's usually down there protect. Excuse me. Hold him. It's still a game by Joel Embiid. He still has a double double, 34 points, 10 rebounds, but you are able to hold him to 50% from the floor, less than 50% from the floor, and Hartenstein right there being a +1 in 30 minutes of game time is really impressive. Like I said, plus minus isn't everything. But when you can get a guy out there to give you 3 blocks, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 14 points in 30 minutes against Joel Embiid, it's a recipe for success. And the Knicks have found that there were some interesting whistles being blown in this game. And the Sixers definitely were not very happy with that, or I should say non whistles. But the Knicks defense came up huge. A really underrated part of this Knicks success. We talked about it before the series with OG Anunoby in the lineup. The Knicks are 20-3 overall. They're now 22-3 after taking the first two games of the series. And what he does, while he's not lighting the world up on the offensive end, having 10 points on 40% from the field, what he does defensively, just the pressure he commits to people on the outside is huge. He's shutting down at least one person a game. And if you can take some guy out by having OG Anunoby in there, that is huge for the series. Now, Joel Embiid did come out and call his shot. He said, "We are winning this series." He came out and he said it. So all props to him for coming out and being confident with that. And I still do believe that the 76ers have the ability to come back. See, that's the difference between this Lakers series and this Knicks series we're talking about. This Knicks series, it was a 3-point game and it was a 7-point game. And in both of those, the Sixers are getting the points. They're scoring over 100 points each time. It's just their defense hasn't quite been able to shut down the Knicks. You look at the Knicks, all 5 of their starters got into double digits points wise in this last game. It was just great offense, great shooting, 40% from the field, 33% from three. It looks more like a normal game. I mean, when you compare the shooting numbers, they're very similar, which obviously lends itself to a tight game like this one. But the Knicks just made more plays defensively. You look at the block numbers; they both have 6 blocks, but you have Hartenstein in there on the inside coming up with huge clutch blocks, especially down the stretch to secure this victory for the New York Knicks. Very impressive performance by the Knicks, and I think being at home certainly helps. We talk about home court advantage, especially at the Garden, the kind of home court advantage that they have there, but you're going to Philly. Another huge place for home court advantage now. I expect this series to go 7. I didn't realize the Knicks were going to be capable of putting up this much of a fight, so all props to them. I did not think they'd be able to do this without Julius Randle, but if they're able to keep this up, they have almost a scot-free path to the to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they'll match up most likely with the Celtics the way that it looks like they're going. Now, I never want to look too far ahead. I just think the winner of this series is going to beat the winner of the Pacers and Bucks series. Just the way that I'm feeling. The Knicks, the way they're playing right now, if they can keep this up, they are definitely in conversation to compete in the East. It's tough when you're going to play some real great competition. You look at their path, it's not easy. You go through Joel Embiid and the Sixers, then presumably we'll go with the higher seed. I still think that series in Indiana and Milwaukee is kind of a toss-up. But then presumably, at least the way it's going right now through the first game, you get Giannis and the Bucks, because Giannis should be back at that point. And then you get the super team in the Celtics, and then if you win that again, you get my prediction, the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. So that is a lot of huge, imposing big men, probably the three best big men in the league that you have to go through if you're the Knicks on the way to a title. And it's going to be really tough. I don't think they have the ability to make it through all of those big guys, especially without Julius Randle. Joel Embiid still isn't fully healthy. Looks like he kind of re-aggravated or nicked his injury in that first game. Now he's still out here playing, 40 minutes, 39 minutes, 40 minutes, putting up 34 points. So it's not like he's playing poorly. It's just they're going to need to kick it into higher gear. They need to step up on the defensive end a little bit, put more pressure on the outside shooting, because that's what's really been killing them. The shooting from the outside, they hit 10 plus threes in back-to-back games. It's a lot of three-point shooting. So I think the Sixers still have the ability to do it. Joel Embiid still believes in this team. He came out and he said that he basically guaranteed this series. So we love that for them. Good luck to the 76ers. Good luck to the Knicks. I'm very excited for the rest of the series. I think this is going to be one of the tighter contested series for all of the games, 4, 7, however many it takes. Very excited to see what happens when this series gets to Philly, if the Knicks are able to overcome that Philly home court advantage. But for now, the Knicks are dominating. I gotta take a little bit of an L on this one. But I do still believe in the 76ers with Joel Embiid. They still have the best player on the court, and I think they can start to pull out some of these close one-possession games because of him. Tyrese Maxey has been playing incredible too. Multiple 30-point games back-to-back against a really solid Knicks defense. So props to them, props to the Knicks. In our third segment coming up, we are going to take a look a little bit at the NBA Anonymous Players Vote being held by The Athletic every year. It came out yesterday, so we're going to talk about some of the big stories coming out of that, players feeling disrespected, respected players throughout the league, what the players think of each other in this poll. So we'll break down all of that and more coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours, just like on your favorite cable sports channel. Except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back. Thank you everybody so much for sticking with me on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just finished breaking down the Knicks and the 76ers Game 2, looking at the future of that series, as well as taking a look at the Lakers and the Nuggets Game 2 and the future of that series. In the third segment coming up here, we're going to take a look at the yearly athletic poll that asks questions to the entire league around the NBA, get some answers to some of the most burning questions, the MVP, the GOAT debate, who is the most overrated and underrated players in the league. We'll break down all of that coming up in just a second. But before we do, Remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the link on the screen right now. If you leave a tip or donation with a message, that message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate anything you do give. Once again, that link to leave a donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, the NBA Anonymous Players Vote came out yesterday, the 22nd. And we're going to take a look at some of the responses that they had to this poll, some of the big questions going from the MVP, most overrated, to the GOAT. So The Athletic, great sports media site, goes through and asks every single year since 2019 the NBA player poll. So there's 127 players that answer it. They've had people from all 30 teams, and it's all anonymous, so we don't know anybody that says this. So the first question that they ask is, who is the MVP? And taking a look at this poll, Nikola Jokic gets 41% of the votes. There's 141 votes cast. So, a vast majority of the league does vote in this poll, from stars to bench players to role players. All these guys, so top to the bottom of the league, gets votes. There were 5 players that received top five players receiving votes. Nikola Jokic, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Donovan Mitchell snuck into the top 5 there. Nikola Jokic is 41%, Shea is 36%, Luka is 9%. So Jokic is the player's favorite to win the MVP. He's my favorite to win the MVP again. Nothing against the rest of these guys, but as we talked about in the first segment, what Jokic has done for the Nuggets, he is the most valuable player on that court. Players agree with that, just what he has done this season. They say he's unstoppable. He's changed the game. His defense is underrated. It's very impressive what he's been able to do. Another debate that we've been having is the DPOY debate. Who's the best defender, defensive player of the year? This kind of backs up what I've been saying, what a lot of people have been saying around the media sphere, around the league. Victor Wembanyama has been voted the best defender in the league. He gets 15.2% of the votes, beating out Drew Holiday, who had 12.9, and Lou Dort, who had 9.8. Rudy Gobert, who is the favorite to win the actual Defensive Player of the Year award, is sitting there in 6th place with 6% of the votes. And Rudy Gobert is very famously not very well liked around the league, very disrespected, and that definitely has something to do with it. Putting Jaden McDaniels above him, something I probably would have put him above that. But there's some really great defenders on this list. Jalen Suggs gets a shout out, the youngster on the Magic. OG Anunoby is here at the bottom of the list. But Victor Wembanyama at the top just shows how scared some players are in the league of his defense. You've seen some clips around the league already. There was that 3-on-1 against Memphis at the end of the regular season that he just completely brought to a halt just by standing there. Is very, very impressive what Victor Wembanyama has been able to do on defense, and the players in the league are absolutely recognizing him for it. Lots of different debates. The players are saying he just makes it so hard to finish on the rim. Next one is really interesting to me because the question is, if you're building a roster from scratch, who are you going to sign first? 136 players voted for this, and at the top, basically tied, is Victor Wembanyama with 27.9% and Nikola Jokic with 27.2%. Now, Victor Wembanyama is an obvious option. He just finished up his rookie season. He looks like the best defender in the entire NBA already, as the players already voted on. and his ability on offense is just going to continue to grow. Uh, Pretty much a no-brainer for me. He's my guy that I'm starting if I'm building a roster from scratch. But Nikola Jokic there at second, he's at second over younger guys like Anthony Edwards, like Luka Doncic, like Shea, who are all very young. Nikola Jokic is almost 30 at this point, and he's still gonna be second in this vote. You know, you have just because of his age, it makes it interesting. It shows how much people respect him and how great of a player he is. Because even at age 30, with the chance of him retiring in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years maybe, uh, he is still up there, neck and neck with Victor Wembanyama for the first player going off the board for a brand new franchise. It just shows how well respected that Nikola Jokic is, even though he is much older. And this brings it to maybe the more interesting kind of polls, the start of the trash talk part of it, where you get the question of who is the league's most overrated player. So with 81 votes cast, it's Rudy Gobert, getting 13% of the vote. Jordan Poole in second. And we just finished talking about Rudy Gobert, how it seems like not a lot of players in the league like him, or they just don't respect his game. And that is absolutely shown here, getting 13%, the number one most overrated player in the league from the players. But Jordan Poole in second, Trae Young in third, feels a little unfair, but Dylan Brooks is fourth there. I don't know how many people are overrating him. Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Jason Tatum at the bottom. There's plenty of people getting votes, but Rudy Gobert runs away with this one, and I don't know why everyone in the league dislikes him. You know, there's quotes out there that says all he does is block shots. You know, he's 7'3", he blocks shots. That's what he does, and he doesn't do anything else. So he's getting paid a lot of money. He's probably going to win defensive player in the league of the year, but players do not think he is deserving of these awards. And then on the flip side of this, the most underrated player, Derek White and Jalen Williams are tied for first, with Drew Holiday and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander slightly behind him. Some interesting names on this list. Derek White kind of just exploded in his, name recognition in this last season, being a part of that Celtics team, a very valuable part of that Celtics starting five. Jalen Williams, an underrated piece of the Thunder, and Drew Holiday there in third, what he's done for the Bucks to be a championship team, and now when he goes to the Celtics to help anchor that defense. Defensively, he's one of the best perimeter players, and what he can do offensively to boot as well definitely puts him at the top of this list. But there's a lot of good names, De'Aaron Fox, Shea, Brandon Ingram, Kobe White, Naz Reid, these guys, OG Anunoby, these guys that just don't get all the love in the world. But Derek White and Jalen Williams were voted the league's most underrated player by their peers. And then last one I wanted to talk about was the greatest player of all time. You get your normal answer. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, the top two. Michael Jordan still edges out LeBron James by 3%, but that gap keeps on closing. Jordan got 45.9% of the vote. LeBron James got 42.1% of the vote. Kobe is sitting there in third at 9.8%. But someone voted for Paul Pierce. You got Steph Curry, Magic Johnson, and Paul Pierce also receiving votes. Someone decided to vote for Paul Pierce. And I don't want to talk trash on Paul Pierce. But Paul Pierce is not the GOAT. I don't know who did that. I don't know who voted for Paul Pierce. But he just is not the greatest player in the league. There are so many so many great players that I would have put over Paul Pierce. Again, no disrespect to Paul Pierce. He had a great career. He's just not the GOAT. I know I said that the last one, but the real last one I want to talk about is what team other than your own do you think will win this? Will you think will win the title? Nuggets have 55% of the vote, and the Celtics have 33%. So those are the two favorites, and people just think Jokic is that much better than the entirety of this stacked Celtics team. So, very interesting results. Go check it out. It's on The Athletic. There's a lot more polls. Which coach would you like to play for the most? What coach would you like to play for the least? Which player would you like to fight the least in the NBA? So there's some fun ones on there as well. But it's always interesting to see what the players actually have to say and what they themselves think. In our fourth segment coming up, we are going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the potential trade of a wide receiver in the NFL on draft night. A big name wide receiver and his potential to get traded to certain teams. So we'll talk about all of that and more coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we have talked a lot of NBA. We talked about the Nuggets taking down the Lakers in our first buzzer beater of the playoffs, and we talked about the Knicks taking down Joel Embiid and the 76ers in a nail-biter down the stretch to each of those teams go up 2-0 in their series. We also finished talking just recently about the NBA Players Poll that just finished up, that came out yesterday, where The Athletic polled a bunch of players from all 30 teams in the NBA, asked them questions like who's the MVP, who's the best, who's the GOAT, who's the player you would least like to fight, and more. I recommend checking that out because we did not go through everything, and there's a lot of really great quotes in the article that you can read for yourself. But in this fourth and final segment, we are going to move into the NFL. We're going to talk a little bit about Brandon Ayuk and the potential for him to get traded. There's been rumors swirling all offseason surrounding Ayuk and places he might be able to go, hot spots like the Steelers, and what the 49ers might be able to get for him if it will happen. So rumors have been swirling. We'll break down all of that coming up in just a second, but before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. That link on the screen right there. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. You can control what we talk about here on the podcast. Again, go to that link, gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate all of you guys for sticking around and watching. But let's get right back into the show, talking about some NFL. Oops, wrong one. I apologize. Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk has been on the trade block from the 49ers basically all season. And it's not because the 49ers don't want him, not because he wants out of the 49ers, but because the 49ers are going to have to pay him, and they are going to have to allocate their resources somewhere else. They're already paying Debo. They're already paying a lot of their core. Christian McCaffrey got paid, and Brock Purdy is coming up next. So they need to save their money for that, as opposed to Brandon Ayuk. So he's a little bit expendable at this point. And lots of teams are looking at getting him. There's been rumors of him going for as high as a first-round pick, and we could see something like that happen on draft day. A lot has been speculated. The Steelers are a team that, after trading away Deontay Johnson to the Panthers for a bag of bones, are in the market for a wide receiver. They're not picking high enough to get one of those top guys like Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison. Now, this is a class that is chock full of wide receiver talent. You have guys that you can grab in the second round that probably would go in the first round in a lot of drafts. It's a very, very stacked receiver class, But at the same time, if you can get a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who's already an established star, as opposed to taking a risk on a guy like a Xavier Worthy, who, yes, exploded the combine with a new record time in the 40, but he's got some drop issues. You don't know exactly what it's going to look like for him transitioning out of college and into the NFL. You can already have an established star in Brandon Ayuk that has shown the ability to be a deep threat, to who believes in who will put his body on the line and go block for you. If it fits a scheme like the Steelers, it's a very, very good fit. You get him with one of those two quarterbacks opposite George Pickens, and you get that running game going with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris behind a pretty solid offensive line. The Steelers are built similarly to the 49ers. They just don't have that same level of talent that the 49ers do have. They're kind of 49ers light, that great defense with mediocre quarterback play and some good weapons, not elite weapons like the 49ers have. Just that's really where they're lacking. And you can get a guy like Brandon Ayuk, it can make a huge difference for a team trying to compete in a really, really tough division like the Steelers are in. You are in a division with 4 possible playoff teams. The Bengals, who finished last, were still above 500, are getting their quarterback back in Joe Burrow, and pairing it with most likely the final year of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase together, although maybe they'll be able to work something out with T. Higgins, and if they are able to do that, that's already one of the best receiving cores in the league. But if they can lock both of them up long term, that would be huge. And then you have the Ravens, who have reigning MVP Lamar Jackson and healthy weapons. You're getting Zay Flowers, you're getting a healthy Mark Andrews. It's a really stacked team. They've added Derrick Henry. The defense, they brought back Justin Madubuike, who was a monster down low, and they did lose a couple key pieces, but you bring in Derrick Henry after you lose basically all of your running backs, it's good enough. I feel like that's a good enough replacement. I don't know about you. I'm a big King Henry fan. I know he's at that point where he's on that impending cliff of running back fall off, but I think he's still got some more time left in him. That he can still be an elite top-tier running back for just a little bit longer. And and the Browns, who, they added Jerry Jeudy, they added more wide receiver talent around Deshaun Watson, that defense with reigning Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett, and the rest of that line is really, really solid. You still have Amari Cooper across from Jerry Jeudy. You have some really good tight ends. And as long as they can figure out that quarterback situation, they're also in contention for the playoffs. So you need, if you're looking at all 4 of these rosters, the Steelers might honestly be the weakest one. And that's crazy, because the Steelers have a really, really good roster on paper. But you go out and you get a wide receiver like a Brandon Ayuk, that could make a huge difference for a team that needs to be able to put up points in a division that's going to be really, really tough to win games in. They want to make that playoff run. They need to add more weapons. So I do believe that Brandon Ayuk will get traded. The Steelers are a really good spot. Depending on how much draft compensation the 49ers are looking at getting for him, you could see him traded to a team like the Giants, who most likely will draft a receiver at 6, but if they decide to go a different direction, maybe draft a quarterback there, or get some more offensive line help, or really anything, maybe they trade for Brandon Ayuk with their second round pick or something like that. Not exactly sure, again, what kind of draft compensation that the 49ers are looking for. Highly doubt that they'll trade it in division, but the Cardinals, another team that could be looking at wide receiver if they'd rather go somewhere else at 4, or they trade out of 4 with the Vikings, for example, at 11. Maybe none of those top tier receivers are there. Maybe they trade one of those picks maybe they trade 23 or something to the 49ers for Brandon Ayuk. Although, again, in division, it's going to be a lot tougher to get these kind of deals done. But yeah, lots of really interesting stuff going on around the NFL draft. If the 49ers do trade Brandon Ayuk, they're definitely going to take a step back on offense. I think that pairing of Debo and Brandon Ayuk is one of those really intriguing wide receiver pairs, because you have a unique talent in Debo who can be really put anywhere in the field, backfield, slot, outside receiver, and he's going to take a lot of attention, and that leads excuse me, and that leads a really solid wide receiver like Brandon Ayuk on the outside with one-on-one coverage where he can really exploit it. And I think that's half of the reason why Brandon Ayuk was able to explode this last season, because he was the odd man out. He was the man that they couldn't double. And he's able to burn his one man. Christian McCaffrey is taking some bodies. George Kittle is taking some bodies, and that leaves a lot less focus on Brandon Ayuk, and which is why he was able to have this kind of season that he just had. Very impressive season, and I'm not going to chalk it up solely to that. But I'm curious to see that if this does happen, how the 49ers offense will evolve. They still have plenty of guys that can play that role. I really like Juwan Jennings. He doesn't get a lot of shine in that offense, but he routinely makes clutch plays throughout the season. He's kind of that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 kind of role, but he comes in and he makes big plays all the time for the 49ers. I'm a big fan of Juwan Jennings, and I think he deserves a bigger spot in that offense. Maybe he steps up into that Brandon Ayuk role. But I'm more curious to see how Brandon Ayuk, if he can fare well as a wide receiver 1. Because you put him in a Steelers offense like the one that they're running right now, you do have George Pickens there, but he's not going to have that same kind of gravity as a Deebo Samuel is going to have, and Brandon Ayuk might even have more gravity than George Pickens. So you get him in there, and he would kind of act as that pseudo wide receiver 1. I'm really curious to see if he can handle that, how it's going to affect his game. Now, none of this is a done deal, but I feel like there's a very high probability that Brandon Ayuk does get traded, and all signs seem to point to the Steelers. People have been saying a number 1 pick for him, a first-round pick, which, again, seems like a lot for a guy in Brandon Ayuk that I'm personally not convinced can be a number 1 option on his own. I think he really was helped out by the gravity that his teammates created in San Francisco. So, curious to see what he can do. And again, I'm not trying to say he's a bad receiver. He's a good receiver, and I think he's a really, really good wide receiver 2 to have. But as a wide receiver 1, I'm just not convinced he can fulfill that role. And the 49ers are going to be asking for wide receiver 1 compensation. I wouldn't do that. I'd probably trade a second at most for him. Maybe not even a second, because that's still a lot. But a second-round pick, a day 2 pick for Brandon Ayuk is something I'd feel comfortable doing, especially if you're going to be able to pay him, after this 1 year. So look for him to be on the move, as well as other rumors circling. I don't think Justin Jefferson will get traded, but there are plenty of rumors saying he will. If the Vikings trade him and go get a quarterback at the same time, I don't even know what they're doing, because the only way that any of these quarterbacks make sense to go to Minnesota is if you can build around a guy like Justin Jefferson. They should pay that man. I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense with where the Vikings are right now for them to trade him. They're not really on a decline, but like, if they do, they are going to start to tailspin, because Justin Jefferson is one of those few wide receivers that can carry even a mediocre quarterback. I mean, you saw Nick Mullins was still throwing 4 touchdowns a game to pair with his 6 interceptions, in 400 yards. That's a lot to do with Justin Jefferson. He just said, screw it, Justin Jefferson is down there, we're going to throw it and hope for the best. And it worked out about 50% of the time, because Justin Jefferson is so special of a talent that he can make those catches. He can be that difference maker. But yeah, lots of stuff to think about. The draft is coming up in just a couple days, 2 days from now. We're going to have some MLB power rankings later this week. We're going to have our final mock draft come out on Thursday, the day of the draft. So stick around for that. We appreciate everybody so much for tuning in and watching today's show on today's show of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back here same time, same place tomorrow, breaking down some more playoffs and any other piece of major breaking news that happens throughout the day. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go